So welcome to another episode of TechCodePractice. Not actually an episode, but a training. And yeah, it's good to have everyone here. I hope you all had a good weekend. Um, yeah, it is time for us to continue from where we stopped. And you guys did quite a lot with the for loop last time. I got your assignments, and let me see. So yeah, and the assignment was one that had to do with the for loops. So we did kind of a repetition of what you guys already did with the while loops. So let's try to get to the assignment questions. So most of you, I think almost everyone got this one really well, and I was quite impressed, and I think it's very good. Don't beat yourself up if it was very difficult for you to grasp at first, but yeah, you do need to play around with this. Like I mentioned to you guys before, the for loop is really one of the backbones of of Java or any programming language, for example, especially, and sometimes the syntax might be a little bit different, but it is very important that you guys wrap your head around it and know how it works. And I saw most of you do that, so I'm just going to quickly go through the ones I got. So I saw Constance, very elegant. You started counting from 1, and if it was less than or equal to 10, you incremented. So this was also pretty straightforward, and you see that works out pretty well. We also have the second one, which summed up the first natural number, so which makes sense. You had a variable that was just waiting to get the natural numbers, and you started counting from 1 and then up to 10, and you looped, and every loop you added the value to whatever value was in sum, and here you printed it out. So that's pretty good. Yeah, so awesome. This was okay. I think you did this twice. You sent it twice. So that's the same thing. And this part was let's play it out. Let's see what it's doing. So now I'm being asked to enter a number. I'm gonna enter the number 4, and it gives me the 4 times table in a descending order. So that's also pretty neat. And what she did here was she started her number from 12, and if it was greater than or equal to 1, she decremented. So which is very nice. I'm happy to see you understand the increment and the decrement. Remember, the increment is a plus plus, the decrement is a minus minus. And then you printed that out here. Very nice. And this is yeah, this one was quite interesting. So I see Constance tried out the shape, and she did figure out the first one. So it's a very nice try. I'm happy to see that you gave that a try. If I'm not mistaken, I saw an email coming again. Let me just check my mail again. I don't know, I think I saw something coming yesterday. Oh, yeah, I think Constance sent something again this morning. Let me just take a look. Just give me a minute. So I see for loop 6, so I'm gonna put that in here. I think this was sent either yesterday night or this morning. So let's see what this one is doing. Okay, this is interesting. So I see Constance managed to get the first shape, but not totally correctly because we're missing the first one. So you started from 2, but a very nice try indeed. So this is interesting to see. So you see, I'm making your code look good. Like I mentioned last time, please, it's good to format your code. So if I go back, this is how your code looks like. It's a little bit disorganized. It's not easy to read. Remember, you can just Control A, you go to code, and you say format code, and it cleans it up for you. See how clean it is now? So you can always use that to make your code look good when you're done. I can understand when you're programming you want to do it a certain kind of way, but when you're done, please arrange it so that it's good for on the eye. So yeah, you missed the first one, so that's a thing. So yeah, probably we'll look into that later. But let's take a look at what you did. So you started with a star, um, and then you started adding stars to it, right? So what if we made this empty? Instead of starting with a star, we start with an empty string. Let's see if we will get the first one. So you see, we got the first one here. So because starting from an empty string, then the first one will have to go in there, and then it goes all the way down. So you see, you're pretty close to it. So you just had to make the first one empty. Very interesting how you did this. Yeah, quite interesting. So you, all right. We'll look at this later. Very nice. Let's go to. No, I'm not gonna go to Ifeanyi. Ifeanyi was too much of a guru on this, but we're gonna look at what he did later. So this is Nonso. Let's see what Nonso did. So Nonso had that 1 to 10 pretty well. So that's interesting. Integer, I put 6 to 6 times table very nicely. So remember again, you can always Control A and format your code. Control A, you go to code, you say I want to format code, and it arranges your code quite nicely for you. So it looks nice. So I think this one is that of the table in a descending order. So that works pretty nice. And this is the sum of all natural numbers. This looks also pretty good using the for loop in a nice way. So it's also nice to use indentations properly. So you see, you put this one just right after your bracket. There's no error with that, but it's quite difficult to read. So you want to put your expressions in the next line when you're inside the code block. That way it's easier to read. So let's see. I think I just got an email again from Chinoso. Chinoso sent a for loop again. Let's see what that's about. Let's see. Let me see. So I'm just gonna add this to our code. I think that's this one. So I'm just gonna run it again. Let's see what this does. So it says, which program would you like to print? So let's say 1. Alright, so it should print the first one. Okay, that's interesting. So I see you got the first one correctly. So I'm gonna try 2. I'm sorry. Which program would you like to print? I'll say 2. And I see you did the second one correctly as well. Alright, pretty nice. Let's see what you did here. We're gonna take a closer look. But I'm really happy you're playing with this, and also it's nice that you're giving me a choice. But the truth is, I don't know what 1 and 2 means. So next time, if you're giving me a choice, you have to explicitly tell me what 1 and 2 means. So maybe 1, you say 1 is a square pattern. The 2 is half triangle. That way the user knows what it is. So it has to be more user friendly. But good try. And I see you also printed it out interestingly well. I'm really happy you guys played around with this. This is nice. Alright, let's go to I think we have OB, right? So let's give a try. Let's see what OB is doing. So OB asks to put it a positive number, so that gives us the 5 times table really well. Using the for loop, we go to the next one. This one prints 1 to 10 really nicely. I'm really happy. Yeah, also really happy understanding that these are variables. Very nice. Go to the next one as well. So I'm going to enter a positive number 8. This is the 8 times table. So I think that's pretty much the same. That was the same with this one. Oh yeah, this was the descending order. Okay, that's really nice. And let's run the other one, and this is the sum of all natural numbers. So very nice. Putting a variable outside, looping through it, and adding your sum into the variable. That looks really good. So let's go to the pattern side of it. Very interesting solution. So I see what Obi did. Also pretty smart. What Obi did was Obi just printed out the first. I think this is. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he just started 10 stars and just loops through them 4 times. Very interesting way to solve it. Yeah, but I would have loved you to do this more dynamically. But yeah, I can understand why you'd be like, okay, you want me to print that? I'll print that. Only the problem with this now is, yeah, it's not as dynamic enough. But I'll give this a half solution. It's really nice. I like it. Let's go to the next one. We'll see what Obi was playing with here. So Obi also did this really well. So we see he had a nested for loop. Very interesting. Starting with printing. He started printing the stars here, and let's see. And then he used an empty print line, I think, to. Okay. All right. Interesting. We're going to look at this probably later, but we can also see that the shape was well formed. Very nice. There we go again, and Obi did the same thing, the same shape. So I think at a point Obi was trying to turn the shape the other side, but you ended up doing the same thing for all the other loops. Nice. Then let's go to Sumbo. So let's run Sumbo's first. So Sumbo has a 2-in-1 answer here. So first is the count of 1 to 10. It's interesting to see that Sumbo started counting from 0. And that's because if you look at her for loop, she puts her I to start from 0. So if she put it 1, it starts counting from 1. So that's quite interesting. And here also the sum of all 10 natural numbers, 55, which I see that she did here by adding the numbers up. However, Sumbo, this is not how you want to write a for loop. So you see, first of all, you created a variable called 10. You did not use it. Secondly, a for loop, typically you do not put your int. It's not okay. Try not to initialize your variable outside the for loop. It's not how people are used to it, but you see, it works. You have the I outside the variable. Technically, you want to initialize it inside the variable by doing something like this, so your sum stays separately. So this is more of a conventional way you do the for loop. The moment you start initializing your I outside, then you're kind of like, you're not using the full, because one of the great things about the for loop is its simplicity. It's the initialization of the variables are all happening in one line. So you want to try to keep it that way, but your solution works as well. So if you go back to what Sumbo did, Sumbo had an I here, but she initialized it outside outside the for loop, so which also works. And I'm sure you guys have also come across situations where you can also initialize, you can use one line to initialize multiple variables. So like this I, instead of putting it in a separate line, you can just say comma I. So that way, am I correct in that? Let me see. Okay, just give me a minute. Let me go back to what she did at first. Yeah, so yeah, actually she initialized both the I and the sum in one line. So you can do this as well. So if you don't want to put in 2 lines, but I would prefer, if you do not do this to make your code more readable, it's better you put all your initializations in separate lines, so when you come back to it next time, you understand what you did and it's not difficult for you to wrap your head around it. So you want to make your code readable, you want to make it easy to remember or understand, both for yourself and for other developers. So typically, assuming you want to put your int here. Alright, let's go to the next one. We're going to run this one again. So she asked to put a number. I'm going to put a 5, and that's the 5 times table. Well done. And we're going to go again, run this one. We're going to say 7 times table in the reverse order. Well done. And I think Sumba sent in some extra assignments as well. Let's see. I think we have one here. I'm going to pull that in a minute. I'm trying to get it from the internet. Just give me a minute. Alright, so Sumba added 2 more assignments. So let's look at what this ones do. I'm going to import the package just to make sure we have no errors. And then let's run it. So we see Sumba is printing this properly, looks nice. Yeah, I see she also made use of comments, but you know, excuse me. So yeah, Sumba, next time if you have code you're not using, please delete them. If you're not using them, it's not nice to just leave them commented. So just delete them, especially when you're submitting it to the teachers or to your company. You want to take off dirty codes or codes that you commented out that are not used. But we see what Sumba is doing here is also very similar to what we did before, which is quite nice. Started with an empty string, and yeah, she started adding her stars, and she eventually prints it out. This is beautiful. So let's try the other one. So this is the square part of it, and this is quite interesting. She also has a placeholder, and then she looks through it. Okay. Now let's look at Ifeanyi's solution. So Ifeanyi went like KO on this. So we can see Ifeanyi pretty much solved all the problems. So we have the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and the fifth one, and the sixth one. Alright, so Ifeanyi, you have to tell me, did you do this all by yourself or you got some help? Come on, talk to me.
Yeah, I did it. Like, I did some course of data structure and coding. So,
Man, this is really, really good. I can say if you were able to do all of this, I think, yeah, this is really, how would I put it? I think you just need to put in more effort because these are like this for loop and this data structure stuff is really fundamental. And I think if you carry on with Java and you just keep pushing, I probably you don't even need to push much. You would really become a very great good Java developer. I remember the reason why I'm pushing you guys to do Java. Um, there's money in it, to put it bluntly, right? That's number one. And a lot of companies, like as of right now, a lot of companies will even pay for you to relocate to come and work for them. So I know I know you program in a lot of other languages. But oh, if I gone. But if I programs in a lot of other languages, but Java is really very very hot. So really, I would like you guys to really push. For those of you who were not able to get the shapes all the way like he did it, honestly, don't worry. I think I started when I started programming, right? When I came into this for loop stuff, I'm not gonna lie to you. It took me more than 6 months to figure it out. But I expect it for you, I expect you guys not to take 6 months because you guys have me. So if you get stuck, you don't understand stuff, please you're gonna ask me and we're gonna give it a try. And I'm gonna try to explain it to you guys. But the way to learn it is just you have to keep playing with it. You okay. If I says he cannot see the screen, but I don't even see him in the class. Just give me a minute. I will call him again. Just give me 1 minute. I think he got kicked out. Hello? If I can hear us now? Hello?
I can hear you now, sir.
Yeah, can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can see the screen.
Okay. Alright, great. So I was saying if yeah, I know you program in other languages as well, but it's really nice for you to really embrace Java because of how, you know, it's a high level language and companies are out there begging people to come work for them. So, being the fact you handle this well, I think you just there's just an extra layer you need to put on and a little bit of confidence. I think you should start preparing to get a job in Java. But I'm gonna take you guys all to the all everyone. I'm gonna take everyone to what you need to know to get a job, and hopefully one of the greatest starting points is when we finish this training out. You guys have to definitely put some work, but let me get rid of this. Last time I sent you guys, sorry, I sent you guys the exam. That it's kind of one of the biggest stepping stone for you guys to get into the market, which is this guy right here, this Oracle certification. Um, so this is one of the exams you can always use to you know to tell or show a company that listen, I know basic programming. I can start working as a junior or as a media. So I would really encourage you guys to look at it. So I can also do something real quick. So if I go online, I can say practice exam for this. Let's see if we can find one. So you see, this is a practice exam for a practice test for this particular exam. I just pulled up, and you can see that some of the questions you get. Now you see already there's a while loop here, which is something you guys need to already understand, which you guys probably already have been playing with. You see decrementer is here. As we go on, I'm going to teach you guys what this is. This is an array, one of also the most powerful, I will not say the most powerful, but one of the most important data structure, or I would call it an object that we use to store data. So you see, technically they'll question your syntax. They'll be like, okay, what would this print out? You should know what it will do. So I'll try my best to walk you through all of this. This is object-oriented question. So this has to do with classes. So it's more of an object-oriented question. This is also object-oriented. So I'll do my best to walk you guys through all of this. But even if you look at some of these questions already, you would probably have an idea of what it's doing. Like you know what the main class is. You know it's the gateway into your program. And then you see they're quite heavy on data structures. I mean, yeah, these are called arrays, which is we're gonna spend quite some time in. See here, they're asking you which of the following is a legal identifier. So it's more like saying which one is which of the three is a valid variable name, for example. So you know we cannot start a variable name by number, so this will not work. So this will probably work. This will probably work, and probably this. One of the two. I don't even know myself. I have to test it. So you see, these are the kind of questions you get. And should any of you want to take this exam, yeah, you can let us know. You can let me know towards the probably when we've learned most of this, and maybe we can do some preparations together and all that. So this is very good. You take this exam, you can start stepping into the market. But I'm going to teach you guys a lot more because just learning the code does not end here. So this is more like when we finish learning this stuff, this all this syntax, knowing what all of this do. The next thing is okay, fine. How do I get what do I need to know? So it's just more like saying okay. After you finish learning English now, you can speak English, right? how do I get a job? How can I use English to get a job? That's a valid question. So typically what someone would now say is, do you know you can become, because you learned English now, you can become a translator. You'd be like, yeah, really, I can be a translator. Of course, I can translate from a local language to English because I speak English now. Then you need to learn how to translate. You need to go to learn, learn how translators translate or how you can translate a book. You still need to learn that niche. I don't know if I'm saying makes sense. So that's what we're gonna do. You're gonna learn to understand and speak Java, but then we're gonna do a layer up, which I'll introduce you guys to, which is called Spring. So we're gonna learn Spring Boot, and Spring Boot is actually it's called a framework, and with Spring Boot you can build applications like NCAT.com that is quite powerful and dynamic. You can build uh, a lot of programs that are actually running on the internet. I think partly Facebook also runs on Spring Boot or something like that. I'm not. It runs on Java partially, but I don't know which layer runs on Java. But Spring Boot is one of the most powerful framework in Java. So if you learn Java and you put Spring Boot's basics, fundamentals on it, I think you should be on your way to actually start applying for a job. But this is all what I want to take you guys through. It's gonna yeah. Right now we're going a little bit slow because it's very important that you understand the basic. So let me just give show say example of Spring Boot's code. Let's see if we can just see it, get a snippet of how the Spring Boot's code looks like. So this is basically one of the Spring Boot codes. Just want to show you guys syntax. So you see basically it is Java. See all the classes are ending with Java. It is Java, but there are some extra layers that the developers of Spring Boot have put into Spring Boot to make your life easier when developing a software. So you can use this to develop a standalone application. You can use Spring Boot to develop a web application. You can use it to develop a security application, all kinds of stuff. And you see this annotations on top of the class, on top of each method, and even in the class. And these are yeah, these are kind of wires or auto wires or sorry attributes. So I can't remember the term for it again. But yeah, these are kind of decorators you put around your classes, and they actually do certain stuff. So this is stuff they actually make your writing your code a lot easier because the framework comes with a lot of goodies, a lot of they help you solve a lot of problems instead of you doing it yourself. So yeah, we're gonna learn this stuff and hopefully combine. But it will be difficult for you to understand it, to learn this if we don't learn our basic Java. But even if you look at this code, you start seeing things you're very familiar with. You see your system.out.print is here. Yeah, this is basically a method. We're gonna learn that more when we get into object-oriented programming. But the idea, we also have package here. That's something you guys are familiar with. So yeah, that is hopefully where I want to push you guys into. So yeah, if you get there, I think you guys will be ready for the next big thing. But good job. So why am I telling you guys this? Don't feel like it was difficult or it's getting difficult. You want to give up? It does take some getting used to. You have to do it a lot. You have to practice a lot. You have to get curious on how stuffs are done. I'm going to send you guys IFAI's code. I'm going to share IFAI's code with everyone so you guys can look through it. But maybe you can just take a look at some of the things he did, which are quite interesting. And the beauty of this as well, the beauty of writing this kind of code. So, if for example you wrote this code, this like if I solved these problems, right? You can easily, if you learn a different language, say you learn Python now, it's very easy for you to really copy this your solution and rewrite it in Python, because all programming languages are kind of like very similar. Like Python also has for loop, but it's just the syntax is different, but the idea is the same. So you can always redo it that way. So we see if I actually. Um, so let me give you guys. I'm just gonna try to solve two of this. So let's so that we will understand. Or I think most of you also did that, right? But you want to understand how you have to look at this problem to make it easier for you to grasp, right? So you have to look at this problem as two ways, which is what you guys did. It has there are two things you need to count. The first thing you have to count is the vertical. So you need to have one, two, three, four rows. And the second thing you have to count is the horizontal. So you have to count one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, all the way. Um, so I tried to solve this one myself. Um, so I know most of you got this one right. So this one I'm not gonna talk about it. Most of you did this pretty well. This other one, the three, is pretty much a reverse of the first one. So if we look at how if I did that, so if I started counting, so he had a loop. Okay, he actually used two loops, three loops. Okay, so we had the first loop that is that he initialized a row. So he put a row. He created a variable outside the loop and said he needs five rows, which makes sense. So that is one, two, three, four, five. So he needs five rows. So that's good. That's the first thing, or that's one of the things you definitely are sure you want to loop. So you want to loop the rows, and you want to loop the so you want to loop the I'll say the y-axis is one, two, three, four, five, and then the x-axis as well. I'm just using that term to be more specific. Then if I go further inside, he now has an inner for loop, and in this inner for loop he starts counting from 1, and he says if 1 is less than the row, so 1 in this case, so row is 5, so 1 is less than row. Actually, he said row minus I, so this would now, in this situation, row is 5, 5 minus 1, because sorry, no, at this point j is 5. 5 is less than row 2, which is 5 minus 1, which is the first loop, is 4. So 1 is less than 4. Then he says in that case j should be incremented, and for that he printed out an empty space, or he put a dot in there, I think, one empty space. So you can imagine he's going to print empty space, empty space, empty space, empty space, empty space, empty space until he gets a value, and then when he gets a value, it no longer pops in here, but then goes to the next one and prints this out. So this is quite an interesting way of doing it. Um, this is quite an interesting way of doing it. So, but I would probably use just one for loop. We can do all of that in here, but yeah, it's quite interesting you did this way. And I will pass down this solution, of course. Then let's go to 5. Let's see what he did at 5, which is this one. So this is also pretty much the same thing. So remember, what he did is he puts empty spaces till he gets to a certain position. So I will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 is the middle point. So let's see what he did here. So he actually said, okay, he's gonna start his counting at 5, and then what did he do here? He started looping, and he prints spaces using if the row is less than I. So if row 5 is less than or equal to I, he increments that and then prints an empty space. Then he prints, let's see, exactly. So what he did was he created another for loop. So after this loop is done, what this loop just practically does is it prints out the empty space, only the empty spaces in front here. And if you look at this shape looks like an upside down of this shape. So if you turn this shape, this was like what we did last class. It's more like an upside down, but instead of you printing stars, you just print an empty space. So that's what he did here. So he just printed empty space, and after that empty space, then he starts printing the stars, which is what he used this second uh, loop for. But let's see, and your eye. I'm trying to locate your star. What did you print again? Star. So where is your asterisk coming from? Am I looking at the right one? Chino, so go ahead with your question.
Um, how about you allow if I explain how he solved it in his own words so that can
Okay,
understand his thought process?
okay. If I you want which of the answers you want?
I think from the third one, maybe anyone he can do from the third one to the sixth one.
Okay, if I you want to give it a try.
All right.
So,
I'll be using your screen, right?
although I think it's best you share your own screen.
Okay, I'm using my phone at the moment because of lights. So,
Oh, okay.
okay.
All right. So let me go to the third one. Let me look for it. Okay.
The third one, okay, I commented the first of all, I created a variable for the to loop through the rows. That's 5. Then for the first, I have like 4 loops. First in at the outer loop, then 2 inner loops. So what the outer loop does is to loop through the rows, like to make sure that we only have about 5 rows. Like
That's one, two, three, four, five.
that's initialize the variable I, in, uh, assigned it 1. Then if I is less than the number of rows, that's 5. Then it goes through the code inside the loop, then increments with 1. For the first loop, there's a IntelliJ just suggests like if you just print for loop, like it just completes, it gives you J. So it's pretty that was very handy. Then it gives you J, assign it I. Then if J is less than rows, that is if J is less than or equals to 5 minus 1. I don't know if you can they can hear me.
Yep.
That if J is less than or equals to 5, and that the number of rows is 5 for the first loop, 5 minus 1, then it prints an empty space. That is for the number 3, right? It prints an empty space. It loops through it till J is no longer equals to the row minus 1. Then it stops printing space, goes to the next for loop, then create a variable, an int variable, initialize it with I, initialize it with 1. Then if k is less than I, that is the I on the outer loop, like the first loop, on the first loop, then for the first time, the I was 5. Then if the k, until the k is equals to 5, for the first loop, it prints star, then increments with 1. The second time, if the second time k will be 2, then I will be 4. Then the second time, then I will still be 5. Then until k is equals to 5, then it now prints a new line. Then goes through the loop again to the outer loop to print, to go through all this process again.
Yeah. It's quite. It's you have to really visualize it to be able to follow it. So maybe we can just do one or two iterations, right? So I'm going to put a breakpoint here, and I'm going to run it in debug mode. So let's see what's happening. So you see, let's go down here. So you see at this point, rows is 5, right? So we're gonna go in. Now we go into the loop. We go into the first loop, and at this first loop, so this I is equal to 1, which is the outer loop. This is the first loop that counts the row. Then in here, I'm gonna go in a bit. So if I go to the next row, so you see now we have j, both I and j is equal to 1. And the reason why it's going into the for loop is because row minus 1, which is 5, minus I, which is 1, which is then equal to 4. So if j is less than or equal to 4, so this will amount to 4, then increment. So it increments after this. So now it prints an empty string. So if we go, so what this has done now is it has printed an empty space on the string. And remember, this is not a print.ln. This is just a print, which means it's going to add the space next to each other. So it keeps doing that. So you see j keeps going up. It keeps incrementing until j gets to 4. So when j got to 4, it jumped out of it, because if you look at this, if you look at the diagram, you need to have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, and then the fifth one is what will print the first asterisk. And then it keeps decreasing. So the next one will not be 4, it will be 1, 2, 3, and then print 2 more. Then the next one will be 1, 2, and then print 3 stars. And then the next one will be 1, and then print 4 stars. And then on the last one there will be no stars. And that's exactly why he is doing this. He's saying if row is minus I, and remember I keeps increasing. So if I keeps increasing and j is 1, and let me see, and while I is increasing and you use this row, this 5, so you see at the point, let's say I gets to this point, which is the 5th row, right? The moment I gets to 5, then you see it says if j is less than row, which is 5 up here, is 5 minus 5, because at the point this I will become 5, because this I keeps incrementing. This is the outer loop. You understand? Because you have a check here where it says as long as I is less than or equal to row, keep looping. So at the point this it will loop, it will check here, and both rows and I will be equal to 5, which means you've gotten to the final row, and that means it will not print any empty space, because j would now be less than or equal to 5. So it will skip this whole point at the 5th row, at this bottom row, and then come here and print 5 stars. So it's something you really have to really look into and play around, but you just have to also think about it in shapes. Even these empty spaces, you have to think about it conceptually, like, okay, this is actually some kind of a triangle. Wait, let me use a pen to draw it. So you see what we have here. I'm going to take a pen. So if you take a look at this, this is actually a triangle. This is a triangle of empty space. So in your code, if you can just create some kind of a triangle of empty space before you start printing, it also gives you an idea. See, the same thing is happening here. This is some kind of a triangle of empty space. This is some kind of a triangle of empty space. You just have to count how many spaces do you need to print to go to the next line. Okay, let me see, how do I get rid of this stuff I just drew. That's interesting. Okay. Alright, Chino, so you had a question again?
Yeah. My question is, how can this be used in a practical sense in real life situation?
Okay, so it could be used in real life situation when you want to design, for example, pixel games where you want to draw characters. For example, you could totally draw an entire character using yeah, shapes like this. But that's not the reason why these exercises are done. Because in most cases, you'll not be working with some complex shape creating situations like this. Why it is very nice that you try this is because it makes you get familiar with the for loop. Because, like I mentioned, the for loop is quite powerful. It means when you get into when you start working in a real world and you see people solve problems using nested for loops, it's easier for you to understand what's going on. If you don't know what this is doing and how this variable that is in here is being used in the next variable, you get lost, you get confused. But when you play around this a lot, because for loop or nested for loops are used a lot in the industry. And also, moreover, nested for loops or even way loops in its sense are also very powerful when working with data structures. For example, data structures are more like a structural way to store data, and we're going to see more of that. So, take for example your. I'm going to show you guys an example of a data structure. So, like the search you guys perform on Google, right? Have you ever wondered why, when you search for something, it finds it super fast? It's because some kind of data structure is being used. So, I'll give you one of the popular one: tree data structure, Java. So, if I show you guys an image of it, so you see this is some kind of a data structure where if you were looking for Bill, like this is like a family tree kind of thing, right? So you had John. John has two children. Rohan now gave birth to two children, and Emma gave birth to two children, and Tom now gave birth to Bill. So what if you wanted to write a program that checked if Bill was a descendant of John? So you do have some kind of this is actually something you can solve with data structure, but one of the efficient way of solving this data structure is you do some kind of recursion or some kind of loop. There's some kind of loop that happens for you to be able to do this effectively. And this is the same or one of the ways in search algorithms, for example, when you're searching stuff in Google, they use data structures like this. But there is the concept of loop. If you don't wrap your head around the concept of loop, sometimes it's difficult for you to understand how this all relates to each other, or when you come across it in the real world, you would be lost. Let me just put it that way. So, but when you understand fundamentals like the while loop, then you move to the for loop, because you have to loop through this tree somehow to find this information. And sometimes while you're looping through it, you are going to be checking some stuff. So, like for example, if it's a number, so you see that all the numbers. So you'd be like, okay, if the number is less than 3, you go to the left. If the number is 5 or more, you go to the right. Stuff like that. So the point is understanding loops and understanding this nested loops will help you later in playing around with data structure, especially one of the data structure that is very common that you guys will play around with is one they call array, which we are going to take a look pretty soon. So using arrays is a way of storing multiple data in one variable, in a single variable. And if I store this, you see I have different type of cars uh, strings in the variable car stored in an array. How do I find if Ford, for example, is in there? Now, one of the most convenient way of doing that is using loops, which we're all going to see. So this exercise is meant to prepare you and make you start getting confident with looping. Do you understand? And even the more you dig into it, the more you'll be able to understand complex data structures like the not not that you understand it, but when you decide to start learning complex data structures like this, the more you're conversant with loops, the more data complex data structures like this start getting clearer to you. But you don't have to, of course this does not make sense to any of you right now, but I'm just telling you, like, I'm just trying to explain now, the what we're doing now is a foundation for you guys to be able to understand more complex stuff, such as data structure and recursions and stuff like that, because recursion is also some kind of a loop, but that's something we'll discuss some of the time. So yeah, it is very vital. It is very vital. This is more like going to the gym. So if you ask yourself, this gym I'm going to, what am I going to use it in real world to do? Like, am I going to be carrying heavy metals every day? No is the answer. But when you go to the gym, you develop muscles, you develop stamina, you develop good health, and you can take all of those things you develop there. You can take it to the workforce. You can take it to nutrition. You can take it to, yeah. You could, if you're someone that works with your hand, you can take the strength you develop. You can use it to lift up stuff in your job. So it's just more of preparing your mindset, preparing you for what is to come. So that's the analogy I can give you on that. So I will share this code. Any of you, so I want us to continue because I think we spent quite a number of time. I did expect this to be a little bit challenging, but I was really impressed that at least all of you got the first two. So that's good. That's really good. Yeah, Constance.
I had a quick question about my assignment because I think I did it wrong because I was just trying to print out 5 stars
Okay.
and it just I don't know what happened there. It didn't stop by 5 stars,
Okay.
so I wasn't
So
sure what I did wrong.
I think I had quite a lot of them. So which of the ones are you?
6.
Number six. So
Yeah.
let's go through it together. So which were you trying to solve with six?
The second one.
So the second one. So we have she has a variable here. So let's go through it. So you have a variable here of an empty string, but I think this works, right?
Yeah, but like it was printing out way more stars than I wanted it
Oh, I
to.
get what you mean. I get what you mean. All right, let's see. Let's take a look. So this is to check if it is. So what if we said less than or equal to? Let's give this a try and see. Okay, fine. So let's go. Let's step through it. This is the only stuff we have, right? Let me. Okay, great. All right, let's step through it. So we have a variable of that starts with 0. It says at the first loop it says 0 if 0 is less than 5. Yeah, 0 is less than 5 increments. Then we have another hidden loop, has a variable count. Count is equal to 1. If 1 is less than or equal to, at this point at our first run, this is 5. So 1 is less than 5, then increment count. So it says this increment. So then we have our first star, and then what it does here is it prints the first star, and what does it do? And then it keeps looping. So let's see. So it prints. All right, let's put a breakpoint and we walk through it. Let's see what is stored here. Debug. All right, so we do have our I is equal to 0 at this point. And then we go into the inner loop. So at this point I is equal to 1, as you can see down here. Then we go one more step in and we see count is also equal to 1. And then what happens, it adds an X into the star, so you see there's an asterisk there, and then it prints it. Okay, so I see what's going on here. So you're printing it here. Alright, that's interesting. And then we do the same, and then it then prints the second one. Okay, so this the point there is, let's try something else. Let's take this print out you're doing and bring it outside the for loop. So we're getting somewhere closer. So you do have 4 stars instead of 5, and there is a 2. So why this is happening, first of all, we have to explain what's going on here. So what's happening here is every time you loop, you printed the star. Like every time you were in the inner loop, you printed the star without actually coming out of this loop. And while you printed the star, you also incremented or added more value to the star out here. I don't know if that makes sense. So maybe I'll break it down again. Let's just come here. Let me run this again. So at this point, your I was equal to 1. Your star got initialized. So you got initialized here. And then we go to the next one, and then you print it. See, you printed this out. So now what you printed out was 1 star, which was that? You see here, you printed 1 star. Then we go again, and then we're still in the same for loop in this one, and then now star is equal to 2 stars, and then you printed 2 stars. You see, 2 stars here. But there was never a situation where you cleared out this value or reset it to go to the next row. You were just printing it as you were going. I don't know if that makes sense. So ideally, what I would say is it's better you print out your stuff when you are completely done with the row. So let's go back to the picture. So you want to print. So what you want to do is, I think it was, which one did you want? Was number 3 or number 2?
Number 2.
Number 2. Okay. So what you actually want to do is you want to print. You want to print the stars. First of all, you want to have a loop that prints the rows. So you need to have a loop that prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows, and you also want to have a loop that prints horizontally, which is 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you need 2 loops, right? So the first loop, I would take it as the loop that prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you already have, because you already know you want to print 5 rows. So that works. And you print each of these rows outside the for loop. So you actually were printing, you put your print inside the inner for loop, whereas you want to say, okay, only print this outer, or only print these rows or the rows when I've completed the collection of all my stars. So that's why it's best for you to put it outside here. So that way, when this for loop has collected all the stars, like in each row, so in the first one it's supposed to collect only 1 star. Then when you collect 1 star, then it should print it. Then the next one it has to collect 2 stars. When it collects 2 stars, then it should print it. That's how technically I would suggest you go with it. And every time you're done, you have to clear your stars again. So let's see how we can solve this together. I'm sure others already had their own implementations of it, but let's see how we can make this work. So this loops to 5 stars. This one is going to say, okay, if count is equal to 1 and count is less than or equal to I. But the point there is I at this point is, so the first time I runs, I is 5, yeah? So what this would do is, let's look through it. So we see that, let me stop it and run it again. So what's going to happen here? Where's that stuff? Okay, exactly. So remember your shape. Actually, your shape is, you're supposed to print 1 first here. But that's not what's happening, because when we go to the next line, let us see. So where are we? Okay, so we started. So at this point, we see that I is equal to 1. Then when we go in, I prints the first star. But because of count is equal to 1 and I okay, I at this point is less than or equal to 1. What happens? Okay, so this works good. So it does print the first star, but what happens again is the star is not cleared out. So that means when we go again, it keeps adding more stars now to this already existing star. So you see, it's gonna add 2 stars. So ideally, what could solve this problem is by the time you print out your star, you want to clear star. So you want to say star is equal to an empty string. You want to bring it back to its original position so that you can go to the next row. So let's see what this will print out. So you see this prints out a much finer stuff, except for the fact we're missing the last row. But that means that, let's see what happens. Let me just go through it again so you see what it's doing. So at this point, we see that I is equal to 1. Then since count is less than or equal to 1, it will jump out and then print your first star. But then it will clear it out. It will say, okay, since I've printed this star now, which is what you see in the console, it has printed this star, it's going to empty it out again and say, okay, now we're going to start afresh again because we are going to the, where are we going to? We are going to the second row because we have to start all over. We've done this one now. Now we have to clean whatever was stored in this variable star and start the second row. So that's why this was here. So we clean it out and then we start again. We go to the next one and we do the same thing. And you see in the next one it's going to gather 2 stars. So remember at this point star is empty. Now it's going to add this x to this empty or to this star we emptied out. So it's going to add 1. So you see it has added 1 here. You can see it down here. And then we'll go again because it will be true. And then it will add the second one. But then it will now jump out, print it. So now it has printed it. And then it will clear it again. And remember, it has to clear it again because we want to go to the third one and want to start all over again. So that's how that works. So let me just run all of this. So the question could also be, okay, why am I printing 4 stars? Well, the reason you are printing 4 stars is because of your condition here. So you said if I is less than 5. So at the point where I will be 5, this will become false because 5 is not less than 5, so it will jump out. So what you could do is you could make this 5 less than or equal to. So if you try this out, you see we have 5 rows. Another way we could do this is if you want to leave it, if you don't want to use less than or equal to, you can now just increase this to 6. So that way it will print 5 rows for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So but ideally, just make it 5 and make it less than or equal to 5. Alright, Constance, go ahead.
I just realized if I put the string star is the first one inside the loop, it would have stopped at 5. Like,
This one?
yeah, if I put it inside the first loop,
Yeah, that's
and
also
then so
possible.
you don't have to do the last
Exactly.
one. Yeah.
If you did this as well, you see it clears it out. So it does the same thing. It just cleans it
Yeah.
out and starts all over. So because you need to, for every row, you need to clean it out to start all over. So this will also give you the same thing.
All right. Thank
If we
you.
run it, you see. So I don't know. Hopefully, I've been doing stuff with this debugging for a while. I think you guys should try it out. It also sometimes helps you to understand because sometimes you're like, huh, what's going on here? So if you put a breakpoint here and you click on the play and you click on debug, it will allow you see what's going on. So you can use this button to be stepping one after the other. So you see, even this args you see here, that's this variable. So it prints out all the variables. That's this variable. It's empty. So you can ignore this. The I you see here is this I. It's telling you that at this point, I is equal to 0. Then you go to the next. Then it tells you star is empty. It's an empty string. You go to the next one. You see that nothing happened. So it actually, the first one, it did nothing. It didn't get into the loop. So it didn't print anything. And that's because constant flow started counting from 0. So that's okay. You could keep it at 0, you could keep it at 1 if you want. It now goes again into the loop because it has to loop 5 times. You see, if I is less than or equal to 5. Then you do that, then now I is equal to 1 because it's equal to 1 because you say after every loop it should increment as long as this condition is not false. As long as it stays true, you have to keep looping. So now it has looped, I is now equal to 1. So we go again, and that way you will be seeing line by line what is happening to your variables. So you see at this point, you see the star has been incremented, then you go again, you see it comes out, and you go one level again, you switch your console, you see, okay, that's printed something. That way you can actually gradually monitor what is going on in your code, and you can keep doing it until you understand it. Or if something goes wrong, maybe you're expecting somewhere to be 2, it's 5, you'll be like, okay, that's where the problem is. So play around with it. It might take some getting used to, but like I said, I'm really happy with what you guys are doing. The fact that most of you even got the first answer shows that, yeah, you guys played around with it a lot. It's not about getting it correct. It's not about getting it right. It's about understanding what you're doing. And trust me, sometimes you might understand this stuff in your head, but even explaining it might be very difficult for you. As even for me, I'm trying to explain this because there's a way you have to start thinking. You have to have in programming we say you have to get comfortable with conceptually thinking about something. So you just have it in your mind, and you do all of this logic in your mind, or you even write it on paper. Like there's sometimes when it gets too complex, I actually write it on paper. I'm like, okay, if this happens, I want this number to be incremented. When this number increments, this would happen, this would happen. And sometimes even writing it on paper makes it easier for you to be able to write the code out. So yeah, that is it. And let's see what is next on the menu today. So we're not gonna spend too much time again on this. I mean, I think spending time on the for loop was quite good. We're gonna meet it a lot, and very soon, like Chinozu was saying, like, oh, this is fun. This is fun, but what am I gonna use it for? Really, very soon we're gonna start using it. So remember, this session. If I scroll up, you see here that I told you guys we're gonna get to the part where we will be talking about arrays. Arrays is a very powerful data structure, and right now we are somewhere around here. Loops. We've also done control flow. Control flow are the if else statements, and we're still doing that because that's the next thing I want to introduce you guys to, which is a control flow called the switch statement. So control flows are the ifs and the else's. But also there's also another control flow, that's the one I wanted to introduce you guys to today, which is I'm gonna get to it in a minute, which is the switch statement. So what are switch statements? So switch statements allows you to execute a block of code among many alternatives. It's very similar to the if statement, but it just has its own different syntax, and in certain situations it is much more flexible or easier to do, or I'll say much more convenient. So let's create a situation. Let's create a let me use the whiteboard to let me draw a situation that probably we could use the switch statement to solve. So let's see, I'm gonna use the eraser. Let's see if we can do something interesting. Alright, so I'm gonna go back. Down to file. Alright, so who are we gonna use today? Let's see who's gonna help us out with their daily work. So let's start with Obina. Oh, no, let's go with Goswell. Goswell, good morning. Alright, you can hear me properly, right? Can you see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so Goswell, we are going to try to program your morning routine We're going to try to program what does gospel do on a Saturday morning. What are the different choices you have, and what are the catalysts that propels you to take different choices? Fine, I might be a little bit confusing, but I'll walk you through it. So we're going to use this diagram to say this is God's will wakes up. So like I said, when you become a programmer, you have to start thinking conceptually. So the moment I wrote gospel wake up, in your mind, just visualize gospel just stood up from the bed. That's what I mean by conceptual thinking. The moment you just saw this circle and I described gospel wakes up, in your head just visualize gospel just stood up from it. So that's the conceptual thinking. So gospel, you wake up from bed, what's the first thing you do?
Okay. Say my morning prayers.
Okay, so we say gospel says his morning prayers. So we're gonna draw a line. Gospel says morning prayers. That comes here. Morning prayers. What gospel? So what could happen that would make it that will make you skip your morning prayer? What are situation that has ever happened that made you skip your morning prayer?
Okay. Probably I woke up sick.
Okay, so gospel. That means since that means we have to check something before gospel praise. We have to add an extra check here. So let's see. Let me see where are those guys again? Shapes. So we have to check if gospel is sick. Is sick. If the answer is no, he has to do his morning prayers. Sorry, if the answer is no, then let's add, sorry. And if the answer is yes, that means the gospel is sick. So what do you do if you're sick, gospel?
Okay, look for a major, probably maybe go get the medicine or go to the hospital.
I'll say go to pharmacy. Okay. All right. So what else could happen? So we have two situations, right? So one is if you're sick, you go to a pharmacy. If you're not sick, you do your morning prayer. What else could happen that would make you not do your morning prayer?
Okay, maybe there could be an emergency in the compound. Somebody came knocking, and the knock of the door that woke me up. Immediately I answered the door. There was an emergency that could take my attention for the day.
Okay.
So my prayer session has been altered.
Good. So let's try to add another check here. So you see, there is now kind of multiple things now that is affecting Gospel's choice. So we have so now let's put that next. So this one is if it's sick. Then we have another one, emergency knock. So if emergency knock happens, so I'll just say if emergency knock happens, he opens the gate. Opens gate. So let's see. That means what's this stuff? Yeah. So if emergency knock happens, I'll say yes. Emergency knock happens. But if emergency knock does not happen, he does his morning prayer. And this is coming also from gospel after gospel wakes up. Then give us one more. What else could happen that will make you miss your morning prayer? Hello?
Maybe I receive a call.
Okay. So we'll call that an emergency call. So we'll get one more. Let's see. So thus we get an emergency call. So we'll call this emergency call. Now we save this again. So all of this are happening after Gospel wakes up. So if it is yes, so if an emergency call happens, he attends to call, attends to call. But if that doesn't happen, he goes and he does his morning prayer. So look at this diagram, right? So thank you, Goswell, for helping us out with this information. So if we look at this diagram, if you had to write this logic using an if statement, it's going to be a little bit, because you have multiple ifs here happening after this happens, before something else goes ahead happens. So it's not like you cannot write this with multiple if statements. You could, but this is one of the scenarios where probably a switch statement comes in. Now we're going to see how we're going to use a switch statement. Remember, we're talking about control flow. We've done the first type of control flow, which is if statement. So technically, if this was just the only condition we have, Gospel wakes up. If he's sick, he says he goes to do this. If he's not sick, he does morning prayer. This is how that code will look like. So let's give it a shot. So let's go for the simple happy flow situation. So remember, we have Gospel. So we're gonna say the first thing we'll print is system.out.print. We say Gospel wakes up. God's will wakes up. So that's the first part we have. Then we'll now have the condition. We'll have condition that is a boolean. Boolean we'll say is sick is equal to false. We'll start with false. So we'll now use our if statement here. Say if is sick is equal to true. Sorry. So we say if is sick is equal to true, then remember if is sick is equal to true, we have here yes, he goes to the emergency. So you say system.out.print, he goes to the pharmacy. Else, if he's not sick, he does system.out.print. He does what he does. He does his morning prayer. So if this was just only what we just had only one condition or one flow like this, you see this the if statement would do pretty well for us because we just have one. But in this situation, we have multiple conditions that could happen. So this could be, you could also do this with using an if statement, but it's going to be quite ugly and not easy to read. So we could try to recreate this whole block now using a switch statement because it's also a control flow. I mean, the switch statement is also a control flow, but in this case, we can test multiple things. So let's give this a try. We're going to clean all of this out, and we're going to use a switch statement so you guys can see how we can use switch statements to perform this. But mind you, what you can use the if statement to do, you can also use a switch statement. But switch statements are much more conducive for certain scenarios, and some of the scenarios are scenarios like this, where we have three different conditions that could happen, and each of these three different conditions could have different outcomes after when Gospel wakes. So we have the first one. Oh, sorry, I didn't test that code for you guys. So let's test it. Let me test it. Let's do it. So you see, Gospel wakes up, he does his morning prayer. And remember, why is he doing his morning prayer? Because he was not sick. So if I turn this to true, so that means Gospel is sick. Now we run it. We see that Gospel is not doing his morning prayers anymore. He's going to the pharmacy. So this is because we have a simple if that takes care of, that checks the condition that Gospel is at when he wakes up. So now let's get rid of all of this. and we start afresh. And let's see how we can use the switch statement for this. So first of all, let me take you guys to the board so you guys can see the syntax of a switch statement. So the first thing is, when you have a switch statement, you're going to put in your expressions there, here. Then it starts with switch, brackets, you put an expression here. We're going to see what that expression is, or an example of that expression. Then you open a code block and you end the code block. Then you have the first, another keyword that you have to use is the case. The case will now determine what the expression needs to, what is the condition that the expression needs to be equal to. And when it's equal to any of this case, then it will run the code block under the case. And the break, like you remember, I introduced you guys to the break. The break is a way of breaking out of this block of code. The default block is, in case any of these conditions are not met, it will run whatever thing you wrote in the default. Now let's see how that looks like in a real situation. So we have a code block here, an integer with a number 44. Then we have a string size that is empty. There's a string, but there's nothing in the string. Now we have a switch statement that is now checking what the value is of number. So you see, number is a variable, and the switch statement we have a variable of number here. Now it says if this case now it says case, which is a keyword, you now write 29. What it's now doing is, in your conceptually, just think about it. What it's actually doing is it's saying if this number is equal to 29, then it has to run the code block that is in here. If it's equal to 42, it has to run the code block that's in here. And when it gets to break, it jumps out. If it's equal to 44, it runs whatever you have in the code block in between the case and the break. Then it jumps out. And that's exactly what it does for 48. But then if none of these numbers, if this number here, this variable is not equal to 29, not equal to 24, sorry, not equal to 42, not equal to 44, not equal to 48, then it will run the default that we see here, which is it will print, or it will put to initialize the size to unknown. So this is kind of what switch does. What you're seeing here, you can actually do with an if statement, but you see a switch statement is kind of much more cleaner and sometimes much efficient for certain kind of situations. Now let's before we solve this Gaussian problem, let's replicate exactly what we see here so we can see this in real time. So I'm going to comment this out just for now, and let's see, what was this about? So this, you could just you could imagine that this is you trying to print out the size of a t-shirt, but you don't want to show people the size of t-shirt in terms of number. You want to show them small, medium, large, and extra large in terms of clothes, right? So we come here and we say, okay, we now pick the shirt. So we're gonna say integer shirt size. So the shirt size we're gonna say is 44 at this point, and then we'll now put string. We'll say string. String will say, what would we give it? Size in, say size in Roman. So yeah, oh, not in Roman. Size in words. So let's keep it that way. So we can leave it as an empty string. So you can leave it as an empty string, or just leave it this way. This is also saying it's empty. Then we now use our switch statements. We say switch. So you see IntelliJ is also helping you. So what are we checking? We are checking the value of shirt size. So you put it that way. Remember the syntax, you open and you close your brackets. Let me close this, bring this down a bit. So you have an open and close a bracket. This is your switch block. The block starts here, the block ends here. Inside your switch block, that's where you have your case statement. So you say case, this is where you now start testing what value would I get here. If I get, in this case, say if I get a 29, semicolon, push enter. That's very important. You see the semicolon has to be there. What should you do? So in this case, we're going to say system .out.print. We're gonna say the size is okay. Let's just follow this because let's get rid of this. Let's just print it out directly. If we did it the other way, we'll be storing the variable, which is also okay, but let's just print it out directly to the screen. So we'll say it's a small. Alright, then we'll put our break. Then we'll duplicate this quite a number of times. So you see the indentation. I want to maintain the indentations. I'll duplicate this again. Then my next value, I'll put 42, 44. I'll make this 42, 42, make this 44. I'll make this, I think this should be medium, and this will be large. So we just stop here and then we'll make our default. So the default, for the default, you don't have to put the test value that needs to be tested. You just write default and then you write what you want to happen. So in this case, we'll just say system.out print, and we want to print unknown size. Alright, so we see now at this point, conceptually, just take it at this point, the shirt the person picked up was size 44. So if we run this code now, you see it will print large for us because it went into the switch statement and found exactly what it had and printed what it needed to print and broke out of the switch. Let me use a debugger to walk through that with you guys. So let's use the debugger so you guys will see exactly what's happening. So our debugger is here. So when we step over, you see now that it has initialized our shirt size to 44. See, that's what's happening here. So it's now in the switch statement. Remember, our shirt size is 44, and look at what happens. It jumped from all the way here down to here because it found that all of this did not pass. It was not 29, it was not 42, but it was actually 44. Then it got in here, and then if I step over, you see it has printed this. If I go to console, you see it has printed large, and then it's about to break. And when I step over now, because it's on the break, when I step over break, you see it brings me out of the switch block. It's no longer in the switch block. Look at where my the highlighter is, which is saying you're no longer in the switch block, and that's the end of the code. So you see it prints large. What the question could also be, what if I change this to 29? Now, of course, if I change it to 29, it makes sense. It's going to print it's going to print small because that's what it does. It came here and it printed small and it broke. So the question is, what happens if I remove this break from here? So what will happen is, if you remove the break from there, it means it will also go check for the 42. That means it will still run the remaining codes that are under it. So it will check 42. It will not print it, but because 42 is not equal to 29, it will go to the next one. It will keep doing that until it gets all the way down. So, but let's test it out and see what's going to happen. And I would also explain why you don't want to do it that way. Maybe. So we see what did it do here. Shirt size 29. So it actually printed even medium size. So let's see, why did that happen. Let me run the code on debug mode. So at this point, size is 29. It printed out 29, but also printed out 42, which is not supposed to be. And that is quite interesting. Okay, yeah, I think it printed out 42 because since there was no break, it just flushed itself into the next case. Exactly, and that's why you do not want to. It just kind of like ripples itself down to the next case, which is not what it was supposed to check. So that's why it is quite important for you to put a break keyword there to say, okay, when you find one that fits, don't go down again to look for anything. Except if you intentionally want to do that, because there are situations where you want to be like, okay, run this, I'll run this also. Or if you find anyone, then run the one that is directly under it, if that's your use case, right? But in this situation, we're just looking for exact t-shirt size. So when you find the t-shirt size you have, you print out what it is. So what if we did, we type 31 here, then we'll also see that it will run down, because if we type 31, we don't have any case statements that fits 31, so which makes sense that it's going to run to our default. So if we do that, we'll see it says unknown size. So this is something you can also think of. I can do this with this. I can do this thing with this an if-else statement. It's yeah, you can, because if you want to do an if-else statement for that, it will be something like this: if shirt size is equal to 31, you say shirt size is equal to 29, then you say you now do this, you say print this, then you say else if shirt size is equal to, you can now say if shirt size is equal to 42, equal to 42, then you say okay, then print this, and so on. So this will also probably give it the same thing for you, but using a case statement is kind of much more cleaner. It's also a way of solving control flow decision making process, and sometimes there's some cases like this case we described with Goswell, which we're going to solve now. It's even way more efficient and easier to read. So what I'm trying to say is, in most cases, what you can do with an if-else statement, you can do with switch statements. It's sometimes a matter of choice, and sometimes it's way better to solve problems uh, with the switch case statement. But you need to know both of them, because you find both of them in in different softwares and stuff, and people use them for different reasons. So, but in this scenario that we painted about Goswell, we're going to use a switch statement to solve it. So we see that Goswell has three different situations that it needs to happen for him to dive into any of these conditions. So Goswell wakes up. We have three things that could happen. So now we can try to figure out how do we want to represent these three situations in code. So the one is an emergency knock, one is sickness, and one is an emergency call. You could be like, how do I want to represent this in code? Now you can say I could represent this using a string. You can say I could represent this using a number. Depends on what you want. So for simplicity, I'll say I want to represent this in number. So first I would put in my code, and I'll say number one means emergency call. I'll say number two means sickness. I'm putting these comments just for anyone reading the code to understand what my numbers mean. But I'll put it in the output, and I'll say 3 means emergency call. No, this one was emergency knock. So 3 would be emergency call. Now I'll do the same just for simplicity, just to make whoever is running my code to know what's going on. So I'll say no, sorry, I'll leave it this way. So this is for whoever is reading my code to know what's going on, to understand what's going on. Then I'll use a switch statement. I'll put a variable called integer. I'll put my variable right under what I described. I'll say integer call this a situation, is equal to, so the default situation, let's see. So what is the default situation? Let us see. Let me see. Just give me a minute. Um, just give me a minute. Okay, I think I am going about this a little bit the wrong way. So he wakes up. We need a default situation, which will be, okay. We have to line this up a little bit differently. Okay, sorry, we have to line this up a bit differently. So we're gonna put this diagram down here. So we're gonna check the situations one after the other. So if Gospel wakes up, I'm gonna add this here, and then we're gonna add this. Instead of directly putting it here, we're gonna put this here. Sorry, I'm gonna explain what we're doing, because we do need to test a certain situation. This one comes down here. I will explain this in a bit. Let me zoom out. And then let's see. So morning prayer is the goal. So if Gospel is sick, if he is not sick, he goes to morning prayer. Sorry, if this is no, you then check. Sorry, this comes here. I'm gonna explain it now, so guys just be patient. And then if this is also no, alright. Oh, that doesn't look good. I'm gonna put this down here. Okay, so this is our Gospel's flow. So Gospel wakes up. The first thing we check is Gospel sick? If he's sick, he goes to the pharmacy. If he's not sick, the next thing we want to check is, does he have an emergency call? If he has an emergency call, he goes to open the gate. Then, but if he does not have an emergency call, so we'll put no here. No. So emergency call, no. Then, sorry, emergency knock, he opens the gate. If there's no emergency knock, the next thing we check is, does he have an emergency call? If he has an emergency call, we have to attend to the call. If he does not have an emergency call, then he actually will pray. So these conditions will be checked before Gospel actually comes to prayer. So if you look at it, this is actually technically the flow that we want to look at. Of course, you can. This does not have to. It doesn't have to particularly take this order. Emergency call could come first, sick could come, however position it comes between these three. But technically, if you think about it, if Gospel wakes up, these three conditions are technically checked. So he wakes up, he checks his body like, am I sick today? No. Is someone knocking on the door? No. Is there an emergency call? No. Let's pray. So think about it conceptually. That's what's happening. These things happen with you too. You might not know it's happening, but it's happening like automatically. So for Gospel to get to morning prayer, all of these conditions have to amount to no. Any of them that disrupts to yes, disrupts the whole prayer flow. So we can use that in a switch statement. So we're gonna so I'm gonna use this to describe the situation. So a default situation that we're gonna have is, so the first thing we're gonna check is I'll say let's see. So we're gonna start with the first word. So I'll say situation. I'll put the situation to be 2 or 3 rather. So 3 means there is an emergency call. So let's write our switch statements. So the condition we're checking for is the situation we're checking for is the variable situation. So how are we going to write this? Remember, we open our block and then we write our case statements. So we say if, in this case statement, if it is 1, that means there's an emergency call. So we just say system the print. I'll say sorry, no prayer. Attend to gate. Right? Remember, we have to break out of this because when the condition is met, we break out. Now the next one we want to go to is the second case, which is 2. And 2, remember, as I explained here, 2, as I denoted here, 2 means sickness. If the situation is 2, then we say out the print. Then we say we have to sorry, no prayer. We go to the doctor. And remember, we have to break out of it because we've met the situation. If the situation is 3, in this case, 3 means emergency call. So say sorry, no prayers, attend to call. Then if none of these conditions are met, that means if it's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 3, then let's go to our default, which is Goswell's default, which is now pray system the print. Goswell just says let us pray. Right? So let's run this and see what's going on. So it makes sense. The situation is 3. You run it now, you see it's going to say that's not what I'm expecting, and the reason why that happened, of course, is because I did not put a break here. So you see there's a flush that happens here. Sorry, no prayer, attend to call, let us pray. And that happened because I actually forgot to put a break here. So you see it just flushes to the next one. So that's why it's very important to put a break. So in this case, we're gonna say something like, so we have Gospel wakes up and then it checks the situation. So if the situation is, for example, 4, which is not part of what we talked about, so you see it says let us pray. If the situation is for example 2, we run this, it says sorry, no prayer, we go to the doctor, which means he's sick. So that also means that we could actually write a program that so let's go look for we could actually write a program that will first ask Goswell what is the situation, what is he doing, what's going on. That's the first thing, right? We can actually now write a program for that. So we can say, okay, we change this to good morning Goswell, what is your situation? And then we'll probably do the same thing here just to make Goswell understand how to use the software. We say 1 is equal to emergency knock. 2 is equal to sickness, and let's put a comma here instead. I would say 3 is equal to emergency call, and then we'll just print an empty space in between so that it's quite readable. So this is what Goswell will see when he tries to use the software, right? And then we'll ask Goswell to input something for us. So let me just look for one of you guys cool codes and copy copy your codes. That way I wouldn't have to type it myself. Okay, I'll use a buffer reader. Let me see. So here at this point we will implement our buffer reader. Let me just close all of this stuff. Where's my code again? So I'll just let me create my try and catch block. Since I'm using a buffer reader, I'm gonna copy the catch block and just paste it because I don't want to retype it. So that takes care of that. I will import my IO exception. Let's do that again. More action. Quick catch retro. No, that's not what I'm expecting. Okay, yeah, I get why it's doing that. Oh, where is my catch? Let's go back. Okay, so we're gonna leave that. It's because we don't have anything in here yet. So we're gonna come back here and say we're gonna read line. So we're gonna do this, and then we will put that in the block here, and we'll say something like we're gonna move the situation to the top here. We'll just say 4 is I'm fine. 4 will mean I'm fine. So let's put this. So go back here. We say 4 is equal to I'm fine. So the default situation will be 4. We take this variable, we put it here. So that means when Gospel passes if when Gospel types in something, we're gonna get it here. Or let's just make this even nothing. Let's make it empty. So we're not gonna default to anything. We will wait for Gospel to give us something. When he uses the software, whatever he gives us, then will be assigned into the situation, and with the situation, we will come into our loop, our switch statement. Now, who can tell me why our switch statement is giving me an error right now? But before we do that, let's listen to Obi's question. Obi, shoot.
Okay, I see a try and catch there.
Yeah.
I don't understand what that is.
So the try and catch, what this does is this is what you call the try and catch block. At this situation you're seeing here on line 15, we are waiting to get an input from the user. That's what this is. br.readLine. So br is a buffer reader. Buffer reader is just basically we're waiting for an input to come from the user. Remember, I told you guys whatever input is coming from a user is always a string. When you get that input, we use integer.parseInt to convert that string because we are expecting the user to only give us a number, and then that we convert whatever string or whatever it types to convert that into an integer, and then we assign it to this int value because Java is strongly typed. You cannot put a string inside an integer, so that's why we have to convert it using the parseInt. And because of this line is prone to error, to an exception, it's a must. Like the buffer reader forces you that anytime you are using a buffer reader and you are getting input, you have to put it inside a try and catch block. And what this will do is, in case something goes wrong, in case the person types a wrong thing or does not type what you're expecting, it will not crash the code, but it will just print like whatever you want it to print or perform a certain action. So in this case, we are going to say if you type in rubbish, we're going to just say invalid input. So this way, we're not going to allow the code to crash or the software to crash, but we're going to just give the user a graceful error that says this stuff is invalid. But I'm going to put my cursor over this. Can someone tell me why my situation variable is giving me this error, or is saying, oh, this is not going to work? So I can also run it. You guys will see that it's going to break. It says variable situation might not have been initialized. So So how do I fix this? Let me see. Let me call on someone. So I'll give you guys like 30 seconds to look at it and then tell me why. Alright, Obina wants to try.
Okay, so I think it's because you, okay, yeah, maybe you did not label it at the beginning, initialize it at the beginning by
What role are you talking
preparing.
about? What role was it not initialized?
Let me see, 18.
18?
Yeah, line 19.
I can hear you, Obi.
Okay, line 20. Can you hear me
Okay.
now?
Okay. Line 20. So you would have wanted me to initialize it. Can you tell me what to type to initialize it?
Yeah, so it's an int.
Okay, you want me to type it? Just tell me what to type. I'll type it.
So int situation, and I think that's it.
Okay. Okay, but okay, I get what you mean, but I already have it here.
Okay. All right. No, you have to now tell it that it should take any information from the buffer reader. So situation would then be equal to um, you already have that, so I see that.
Okay. Good try. Good try. Alright. So think again. I think it's good. It's good you're thinking like that. So who else? Who else want to give it a try? If you think of something different, just say it. Tell me, Obi. Yeah? But just think, why is it doing this? Because this is an error you get a lot when you're programming. But you need to know
Yeah,
why it's doing that. So who wants to
yeah,
give it a try
situation.
again? Constance, you want to try? Okay.
I
Uh,
have no idea.
all right. Chinoso, give it a try.
I think after the line try, the
Okay.
situation was not giving any either an int or a string. It's supposed to be like int situation.
Yeah, but I already have it here.
Oh, okay. That's it.
Good.
Um,
Good try. Good try. Okay. All right. So let's go with Ifeanyi. Let's see if Ifeanyi is gonna get it.
Initialize the variable situation with 0. Let's see what happens.
Okay. So this would actually solve the problem. So the thing there is, let me put it back how it is. So thank you, Ifeanyi. That's the correct answer. What happens is in Java or in most programming languages, when you init when you define a variable, you cannot just start using it without initializing it. Initializing means without actually giving it something to be inside of it. It's just like saying it's just like saying I say Chinoso um I say if you guys don't know, Chinoso is a social media influencer. She's also a do-it-yourself expert. One of the things she does is she makes wigs. But I come to Chinoso, I say Chinoso, I need a wig. Guess what Chinoso now did? Chinoso now drew me a picture of a wig and gave it to me. Do you think I can use that? Absolutely not, right? That's what this is. Line 12 is similar to Chinoso just drew a wig and gave to me. Now, what ideally I want is Chinoso should draw the picture of the wig, but then use that picture to do what? To create the wig. So the picture is more like the blueprint, and the wig is the actual object, is the actual thing that you now used. Another example you hear a lot. I'm using Chinoso because I want to bring it home. I want you guys to really relate to it. Another example you can think about that you can use is a house. If I ask you to build a house for me, if you're a building contractor, and you just draw the house, because that's the first thing that definitely happens when you want to build a house. You do something that's called a blueprint. You draw it. The architect draws the house and he says, "Here you go. That's your house." You'll be like, no. You'll be like, yeah, thank you for the blueprint, but I really need you to use this blueprint to build the house. So that's one of the things that happens in most programming, actually all programming languages. Just some, maybe JavaScript would behave a little bit differently, but like in programs like Java, you cannot start using it without actually creating it, without actually making an object out of it. Now in this situation, uh, you have to initialize, like this is just a blueprint, but you have to now say, okay, this blueprint has an initial value. Now you could also say like, oh, but we've already kind of done that here. It should actually give it something here. But you have to think about it like this. At this point, first of all, this code block is not accessible to this situation, to this switch block, because this try block is in its own block, and this situation is only going to be able to read the line 12. So this line 21 does not know anything about this line 15 because it's not in the same block as this guy. So the only thing is, when this guy gets the input from the user, that's when it initializes in the situation, and then this value changes. But from the standpoint of line 21, he just looks at this and says, bro, you're just giving me a picture. I don't know what is, I don't, you have to give me something real so that I can work with it. That's why it's giving the error. That's why it has this error that says variable situation might not have been initialized. Anytime you see this might not have been initialized, it means you have not actually given it a value. Go ahead, Obi. You have a question?
Yeah, so without the try and catch, without that syntax there, do we have, can we
Uh,
just go straight and then initialize without numbering it?
well, let's give that a try. So if we took this switch statement and put it in the same block as the try catch, let's see what happens. Do you see that the error is gone? And the reason for that is situation is now aware that someone is going to put in a value, and whatever value is going to be put in is definitely going to be an integer. So that means I'm confident that I'm going to get something. So that means you're not just giving me a picture. I know that someone is going to type in something that is going to make me use that thing, or more, let me put it more, bring it home. I'm sure someone is going to not just give me a picture, but give me something real, and that I can use to run my switch statements. But if it was outside, then the switch does not know anything about the situation in the try block because it's in its own block. That's why you have these braces. This braces. So if you're in a situation like this, then you probably either move your switch statement into the try block or initialize it here. So that's the thing, because this situation cannot read inside this block. It doesn't know what's. If this whole block is blind, he's blind to this. The only thing it sees is what is in the same scope as itself, and this situation is in the same scope as itself, which is okay. So to keep it simple and cleaner, we'll just move the switch statements inside the try block, so that way we don't have to initialize things. Now let's run this code and see. So let's look at it again. So first of all, you see what's going to be printed out. It's going to give an instruction what is. Then it's going to print. It's going to print an empty space. Then it's going to say, "Good morning, Goswell. What's your situation?" Goswell has to give a situation. We're going to use a buffer reader to read that. We'll read that in. It then it converts whatever we're reading into integer and then goes through the switch statement. So that's what we expect to happen. So that's exactly what we're seeing here. It first of all, it gives us the information. It says 1 is equal to this and that and blah blah blah. And then say, good morning, Goswell, what's your situation? So I'll say, my situation is 2. Then it says, sorry, no prayer, we go to the doctor. We run that again. It does the same thing, what's your situation? I say, I'm fine. And it says, let us pray. We run that again. What's your situation? I say, my situation is 1. It says, sorry, no prayer, attend to gate. I will run that again. And what's your situation? I say 3. And it says, sorry, no prayers, attend to call. So this, as you can see, is it's a very you could actually accomplish the same thing with an if statement, but a switch statement is actually also very elegant. It's used a lot, and this is one of the ways you can write that. All right, Obi.
Yeah, sorry. I was thinking maybe you put like a different number just to test, like maybe 6.
All right, why not? We can put 6. So let's go. I'm gonna copy this. So what should 6 be?
No, I mean like in the
Oh,
um
oh, in the input,
in the results,
in the
yeah, in the
console.
input, yeah.
Okay, so let's give it. So first of all, what do you think it's gonna be? So let me bring the
I
block.
expect to see error.
Okay, all right. Who else? Obi says it's gonna say error if I put 6. Constance, what do you think it's gonna say?
I think it's gonna say, "Let us pray."
Okay. Um. No. So what do you think it's gonna say?
Let us go to default. Let us pray.
All right. Let's see. Goswell, what do you think it's gonna say? Hello? Is Goswell there? All right. Obi already gave his. Suma, what do you think it's gonna say?
I think it's gonna print out error.
Suma says error. So Suma and Obi says error. Chinonso and Constance says let us pray. If I what's your vote? Yeah, you can go ahead if I
I said default. Let us pray.
Okay. Gospel, are you there?
Yeah.
So what is it gonna print?
Let us pray.
Let us pray. Okay, great. So guys, remember, Obina says I print 6. So remember what the switch statement is doing. So at this point, situation is going to be 6, right? So I think Obina and Sumbo, you guys said error, right? So follow me here. So situation at this point is what? Sumbo, what is the situation at this point? Remember the user input 6. So what is this? What's the situation at this point in terms of its content? Sumbo?
The situation is gonna be what the user puts in,
Yeah, but I just told you the user
which
put
is
in
6.
6. Exactly. Thank you. It comes to case 1. Is it gonna get into case 1, Obi?
No, no,
Okay.
it won't be case 1.
Good. Why?
Yeah, because case 1 is something else there. That is for 1, and the
Good.
situation there is different for 1.
Good. So situation is 6. Case is 1. It's not the same. It
Yeah.
goes to the second case. Sumbo, is it gonna go in here?
No, it's not,
Why?
because case 2 is sorry, no prayer. It's 6, and that's not 6.
So it's not 6, right? Good.
Yeah.
Let me go to Goswell. Is it gonna go to the third case? I can hear you, Goswell. I don't know if you're there.
Okay. I say no, it won't. It won't go there.
Why?
That place says sorry, no prayer, attend to call.
No, that's not why. It's not going to go to case 3 because 6 is not equal to 3. You see, the case is checking for 3, but the user inputs 6.
4.
So
That's
3 and 6 are not the same, so it's not going to go here. Then when it comes to the next one, there's nothing else to check. So it's just going to print out the default. Let us pray. So that's how you have to look at this stuff.
okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah,
So let's change it now. Maybe this 1 to 3 is a little bit confusing. So let's make the user input something else. So let's, instead of inputting numbers, we're going to say the user should input words. So I'm going to say the user should input a word. So I'm going to change the situation. Instead of an int, I'm going to change it to be a string. And I'm going to tell the instead of 1 to 3, I'm going to say the first one is knock, the second one is sick, the third one is going to be call, the fourth one is going to be fine. So now I'm expecting the user to type in a string for me. So now maybe it will also be clearer for you guys. So instead of 1 to 3 now, I'm going to just type the cases I'm expecting. So the first one is going to be gates. That means if the user types gates, go in here. Second one is going to be sick. The user types in sick. Remember, situation is now a string, and I'm expecting a string. And the third one will be, if the user types in, let's see, what was the third one? So we have call, and then if none of this happens, go to prayer. So the fourth one is I'm fine, or anything that is not the first 3. So if we run this again now, stop and rerun. So you see now the situation is different. So let me just check. So the first one, instead of gates, I'll change this to knock because that's what I wrote here. So not gates, but knock. So knock, sick, call, knock, sick, call, and fine. So I'm gonna rerun this. Okay, so now what's your situation? I'll say call. Okay, you see, it says sorry, no prayer because it checked the case and found call and printed sorry, no prayer, attend to call. If we run that again, it says good morning, what's your situation? I say fine. It says let us pray. But remember, because of the way I typed my case, if I typed in something else like gibberish, it will still say let us pray because it checks everything and couldn't find this gibberish and just goes into default. What is the way I can force it to accept only fine? You guys have any idea? How can I force it to accept fine, and if I don't give the word fine, it's going to tell me something else? Obina?
I think that's where the try and catch comes in.
No, we already have the try and catch here. We're already inside the try and catch. But I don't know if you understand my question. My question now is actually if I type in gibberish, it still says I'm fine. Whereas in my explanation to the user, I said these are the only things I want you to type. I want you to type knock, sick, call, or fine. So that means if you type any other thing other than this instruction I give you, I'm supposed to give you like an error or tell you, oh sorry, this is not a valid input. So how can I solve this? Constance.
By creating another case called fine,
Thank you.
and
So let's
then
do
the
that.
default would then be
Hold up. Let's do that one by one. So I create one called fine, and I call it let us pray. Okay, and then the default will be what? Right,
Invalid
so we
choice
say
or something.
error, error, invalid choice. So great, let's give it a try. So you see now, if I type in gibberish, it says error, invalid choice. Whereas now, if I type in fine, it says let us pray. So it depends on your use case, depends on how you want to do it. If you want to force people to type in a certain kind of thing, of course, um, it will, you will do it, you'll program it the way you want. So I have one more question. So what will happen, what will be the output of this? So let's run this one more time. So somebody gonna help me with this one. So it says knock, whatever, I'll say fine. Sumi, can you tell me what's gonna be printed?
Say your
Gonna,
prayers.
I'm gonna bring this into the screen. Okay. Somebody says say your prayers.
Let us
Chinonso,
pray.
or let us pray. Yeah. Chinonso, what do you think?
Let us pray.
All right. Constance.
Sorry.
Sumo.
Uh, I'm taking it back. It's gonna say error.
Okay. Constance.
I think it might say error.
Okay. Obi.
Let's just say error.
I think it is error because it started with a capital letter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Goswell.
Error, error.
Okay. So Goswell, why do you think it's gonna say error?
The letter is case sensitive. This one is capital, the other one is small.
All right. Let's try. Great. It says error, invalid choice. If I know I didn't ask you because I know you know the answer. So yeah, but I'm also happy all of you got the answer right. Which is something, remember I told you guys when we started working with Java, I said Java is case sensitive. Even if you write the same word but in different cases, it's not the same. They're going to be stored in separate memory blocks. So Java is case sensitive. Uh, this is also sometimes something you might struggle in code, like, oh, why is it not doing that? I type fine, it's not working. Just remember, it is case sensitive, especially when you're using strings. It is also case sensitive when you're naming your variables. Remember, the variable that I called situation, this variable situation and a capital S situation is not the same. So very very case sensitive. So you have that in mind, and it's pretty easy to use. We're gonna use this a lot more. We're gonna play with it, and I have an assignment for you guys for it because this is where we're gonna stop for today. I think it was pretty much pretty interesting work we just did. Just give me a minute, and you guys, I want you guys to play around with the case, the switch case statements. Just give me a minute. Let me put the assignment here. Sorry, there you go. This would be use switch case. And what would you guys be working on? Let me just paste it here. Oh, there you go. Oh, sorry, I just turned off my. You guys are not seeing me again, right?
Yeah.
Are you guys still seeing me? Okay.
Yeah, we're seeing you. We can't see your screen though.
All right. I accidentally locked myself out of my own computer. All right. There you go. I also realized that I often forget to put the assignments in the chat, so I'm gonna put it directly now so I don't forget it for those that might be looking for it. So, like I mentioned, a lot of things you see in this assignment you can do with an if statement, but I would love you guys to do this using a switch statement. There's in some situations you have to, figure out how you want to solve it. So I would say I think there's one of the questions here. It says like number 9, write a program to check whether a person is eligible to vote or not using a switch statement. So you see, I didn't tell you guys what variable to use. I don't tell you to use int. I just want you to write a program. If the user starts it, you could just get creative. Like, we've done something with age before. You could be like, okay, how I'm going to check? I'm going to check with age. You could also say, I want to check with color. You want to be like, oh, are you a black person? If you're black, no. If you're white, no. Although hopefully don't make it that way, because that's a little bit racist. But I just wanted to, just be creative. Think of how you want to solve this problem. Use your own, whatever method you think would work. But ideally, the switch statement should be used to solve the problem. I think it's going to be fun for you guys. Yeah. And that's it. Do you guys have any questions for me? Constance.
Sorry, I don't understand the first assignment. It says read a weekday number. Doesn't mean like 1 is Monday, 2 is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the point is, think about it like this: if the user starts the program, and the person says, and the program asks, I'm just saying, you can solve it however you want, but the point is the input should be a number. Because it says write a program to read weekday number and print weekday name using switch statements. So your program should start probably by asking the user what is the number of the weekday, right? So in this case, it will be the weekday. We have 7 days in a week, so one definitely is Monday, depending on how you look at it. Because some people argue that one is Sunday, but fine. Let's just take it that one is Monday. So that means if I type 3, it should give me Wednesday. If I type 7, it should give me Sunday. So you could do it like that, where you ask the user for the input, or you could just do it in such a way that you don't ask user for the input. You put directly the weekday number, and it should print whatever it is. But of course, it's more fun if you ask the user for input. Any other questions? Yes. So I think this is a pretty easy one. After you guys had a lot of stress with the pattern question, I thought I'd give you guys something easy to do. So, and I'm really excited because gradually we're coming into uh, we're gonna come into methods and arrays. Now these 2 blocks are going to be very, very interesting in terms of there we're going to start learning how to use whatever we've learned to start forming chunks of blocks to really learn how to put programs together the right way. So it's really exciting. I'm really happy you guys are following up with this stuff. It will all come together eventually. So methods, arrays, very important. Once we get to method and arrays, then I think we will then be ready to start looking into object-oriented programming, because that's the ultimate ninja you want to get into. Yeah, so it's really exciting. Please, like I mentioned, do your assignments. Try things out, exercise with it. It's all important. You are learning a language. Practice the language. That's how you learn language, right? You speak, you write it, you try to get into conversations, because ultimately when you get the basics, then you can now start using it to, you can start writing songs, you can start rapping, you can start using it for, you can be a newscaster or whatever. So yeah, they might, to some of I know to some people, a lot of what we've done is quite it makes sense, because probably you've been programming for a while. But I promise you, very soon, I think maybe in the next 1-2 lectures, we will be getting into the real stuff. But you need all of these little things to be able to understand the real stuff and to be able to start looking at codes. Remember, I showed you guys this code from that exam. Where is it again? We had a practice exam. So I'm sure if you guys looked at this code now, you'll be like, I okay, fine, I understand some things, but I don't know what this is. You understand? So these are arrays. When we get in there, when we cover the arrays, I'm sure you'll be able to look at this code block and you know exactly what this is doing. And this is when you get to this part, then you have started. So right now we're doing the ABCs. We're even over the ABCs. We're doing more of two-letter words and stuff. But the beauty will be for you to look at this code and know exactly what it's doing and be able to write to choose the correct answer because you can read it and be like, okay, this is this, this is this, and then be able to answer these questions because these are practically exam questions that you can come across in your exams, which I would love you guys to do because that would be like the launch pad if you really want to get a job with this. Are there any questions? No. So I would like to thank you guys for joining the class. Have fun coding. More exciting things are coming. Don't get discouraged. Don't get overly frustrated. Think about it as a puzzle, as a game. You just have to learn the tricks. You have to get better and better at it, and ultimately, it will be a launchpad to a new career choice for you guys. You guys have a good day, and
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
All
Bye.
right, bye.